All set. Now let us start with the first lecture in which we are going to define information and asset. Well, what is information and what is asset? So according to ISO 9000, that is Quality Management System, information is a meaningful data. Something that has a meaning or a fact provided is nothing but information. Your name, your address, your email address is information. The place you work, the organization in which you are currently employed, or your work is information. Your password is information. So, facts provided or learned about something or someone is nothing but an information. Now, what is an asset? When it comes to security, you always will get to learn about this word asset. So, what is an asset? An asset is an item, thing, or an entity that has potential or actual value to an organization. Now, asset is something that is very valuable to an organization. Asset can be information, that is a meaningful data. It can be a software or a hardware. For example, when it comes to NVIDIA, their GPU design, that is an asset for them, right? Which has something very important value is an asset. Then services. People, yes, even people are assets. For example, consider a person who has worked in an organization for 15 years and now he has suddenly chose to resign. So that is like losing the asset for the company. His brain, the way he worked, the way he operated, that is an asset. Assets can also be intangibles. For example, the reputation and the image of you or your organization. Yes, that is an asset. So basically, to sum up, asset is something that has an actual value to an individual or an organization. Now, there are a set of applications, services, information technology assets, and there are specific asset controls for maintaining the assets. Now, according to ISO IEC 27001, that is Information Security Management Systems, there are 4 different controls for asset, control objectives for the asset. Don't worry, we are going to see the controls and the control objectives as well, but for time being, let us first see. Now, according to that annex A.8.1, which defines the responsibility of assets, how should one handle the assets and what are the different controls associated with the asset? So, for example, inventory of assets, which means the organization should identify the assets and define appropriate protection responsibilities that comes under this control of inventory of asset. So if an auditor finds out that the protection responsibilities have not been defined, he will draft a non-conformity saying that this control, let me take my pen, this control has been violated because the inventory of assets security control is not present. Similarly, ownership of assets, which means the assets associated with the information and the information processing facilities shall be identified and an inventory of assets shall be drawn up and maintained. This is the inventory of assets. Now, ownership of assets. Assets must be maintained in the inventory and they shall be owned. They shall be owned by an organization. There should be the person of the buyer, the receiver, and the process that is being done with that asset. Then comes the acceptable use of assets, which means the rules for the acceptable use of information and of assets associated with information and information processing facilities shall be identified, documented, and implemented. If there is a PC in your organization and if nothing about that PC is present in any of the records, there is no point of having that PC. Auditors will question the existence of that device, right? So there should be acceptable use defined of that asset. And finally is the return of assets, which means all the employees and external party users shall return all the organizational assets in their possession upon the termination of the employment, contract, or agreement. For example, you have retired from your organization and your organization has been providing you with a laptop. So it is your responsibility to return those laptops. And according to this control, there shall be a process defined in order which the employee should return the asset to the organization, because the laptop or the PC is an asset, is a valuable thing for that organization. Well, this was about this lecture. To sum up, we saw what is information, we saw the definition of information along with the definition of asset. We also saw the different types of asset, and finally we saw the different controls that are being applied to information security management systems when it comes to asset management. I will see you in the next lecture.